So we are going to be installing some new lights on the Tundra. It's about time that we throw some lights onto the rear of the truck because we are preparing the truck for a trip out to Moab. It's a good idea to get some chase lights. Since we're going with a big group of people, there's going to be people behind us, and there's a potential to create a nice dust cloud behind my truck. And I want people to be able to see where I am in relation to that dust cloud in front of them. So we're going to be installing some what are called chase lights to the rear of the truck. They're actually going to go kind of up on top. Up here, we're going to do one on each side, and they're going to just point backwards and provide some bright yellow lighting so that people can see us. Everything here is what we're going to need aside from a few tools to get this stuff put on the truck. If you don't have any sort of controller or power controller for different lighting or equipment on your truck, this does come with a switch itself so that you can control it individually, but we're not going to need this because we do have Auxbeam's controller. Now here in front, you can see these are going to be the R4 pod lights. These suckers are super bright. I watched a few videos to kind of see how they performed compared to other ones on the market, and these things are just the best bang for the buck. I've had great experience with Auxbeam so far with the LED pod lights in the front and the controller. Haven't had any issues, so I'm happy to continue to support their brand. These are offered in both a yellow and a white color. Ended up going with the yellow just because it's better seen through dust and at night. This kit does come with an entire wiring harness, including relays, the battery connections, a little inline fuse, and a lot of wire to get you to and from the battery to your lights. However, we're not going to really need most of this. Like I said, we don't need that controller or the switch. We are also going to be able to get rid of this because this is what the switch plugs into. So pretty much all this wire, we're just going to cut off. So we're going to cut this off. Not going to need that. We're going to cut off the battery connections because we're not going to the battery. We're going to the controller that I have. And we don't need a relay because that whole controller has built-in relays and fuses. So getting rid of all that. So really we just need the power and ground connection to our lights. And that is pretty much it. So let's get this cut, and that will be all set. The next thing is we're going to need to mount these guys up. Since I have a GFC topper, you can see up top that it has the trim rails, which are nice because GFC sells these brackets that allow you to mount just about everything to that rail, and it allows it to slide back and forth so you can position it perfectly. As well as we do have some little covers here, since apparently you're not supposed to have open LED lighting on the roadways. Learned that last week, didn't know that. I heard that someone got pulled over for not having their off-road lighting covered. It's kind of interesting. So they provide some covers for you, which is nice to have. So let's get started with mounting up the lights first. This is going to be the best part. So what we're going to do is get our lights all set up to the side, get our brackets that were provided by GFC, and we'll get all of our hardware for our GFC little mounts. And the way that these are going to look is they're actually going to be sitting sort of with the platform up top, and then our little set nuts are going to go inside that frame. We're just going to slide them in there and get this all positioned. Now the nice thing about the GFC kind of design is it has these nuts that fit nicely into this rail. You just put them in sideways, turn them 90 degrees, and they essentially lock into place. They won't fall out of the truck. They're free to slide from left to right, but once you put any sort of torque into them, they don't move at all, which is really nice design. At this point, I'm not really going to tighten it the whole way. Just kind of get it so it doesn't really move around too much. Because either way, I'm going to have to, but we're going to be, oh gosh. We're going to be probably loosening that and sliding it left or right a few times just to kind of get a good position for where we want our lights. Last thing is you can change the orientation of this bracket, which is nice. I can also even do it like that, but by having it pointing, having it up here doesn't affect the opening and closing of this, which is important. Not really a big fan of how high that sits, just how it is normally. If I flip this bracket, it might make it a little bit easier. I think I found the best orientation for this. With this bracket kind of whoop, there it goes. With this bracket kind of flipped upside down, like so. This light actually sits a little bit lower. It can't really sit flush with the roof line, which would be nice. But at least this way it's as low profile as possible. I'm able to get the appropriate angle that I want with the light out of the side or the up and down adjustment. There's really no like left to right, just because the design of this bracket prevents the light from kind of sliding. One thing I did notice is this kind of stud that pops through doesn't actually hit the top when it goes up, which is surprising. With this thing all the way up, it kind of barely misses it. So that means that I don't have to play around with cutting any bolts today, which is nice. Now, as far as this goes, I'm just going to mount these, tighten them up kind of where they're at, and step back and kind of do some measurements and see if I want to move them left or right or anything more like that. As of right now, I'm kind of liking having them maybe a couple inches from the sides, just so that they're able to kind of, one's left, one's right, so that I'm able to get as much coverage towards the back as possible. So this is what I have come up with so far. Got the lights mounted, ran the cables. There is this little opening in the camper here with this flap that allows it so the cable wouldn't get pinched super hard. Did throw a little bit of like the soft part of Velcro there to kind of help just in case. And as you open this up, there is a seal that runs along the seam here. So that should protect just enough on this side. And I pretty much did the same thing on the other side. Now in terms of routing most of this wiring, I want them to be together as I bring them to the front of the truck. I don't think this Velcro kind of style is gonna really hold up too well. But the goal here is just to bring this all the way over to this side and meet it up with the second one. And then from there, I'm gonna have to figure out a way. I believe I'm gonna have to go through the bed in order to bring it to the cab. So I have all the wiring tucked up, running along the top of the frame here, comes down, and basically I'm just running it all the way across. It's gonna sit nice and up higher here. I'm gonna probably tape it along the top of the bed. And then there's actually a little hole, or kind of a seam right here. It's super hard to see, but I'm gonna be able to feed the wire through there, and it's gonna come out right here. I'm gonna be able to run it down and to about halfway through the cab. So there's actually a hole underneath. So where I'm pointing, there's a vent that goes to the back of the cab, and it sits behind the back seat. So this is where the sub is. So we'll have to remove the sub in order to feed the wire through. And here I've already removed the cover, removed the sub so that it's just not bolted in anymore. And this black kind of plastic tube goes to that breather hole. So I'll be able to kind of feed the wire underneath it, put the sub back in place and bolt it all up, put everything back together, and I'll be able to run the wire underneath the seat, down, and then in underneath where I have my Auxbeam switch panel at. Now, because the lights didn't come with long enough wire, I'm gonna have to splice it right around here and extend the wire into the cab. Now this is sort of how it will look. As you can see down below, we have that open vent that's behind the JBL speaker. This may not be the best option to use, but this was the one that I could find that seemed to work the best. So with those open ports down there, I was able to feed the wire up between the bed up to the back of the camper here, and ultimately into the cab. And from this point, I can start to wire up the lights, splicing them with the positive and negative that I fed through the truck. So now I've got both wires routed down and underneath. I have them all labeled up and ready to go. Now all that's left is to basically reassemble most of this back part with the sub and everything, just so I can fold this seat up, have access to my switch panel, and get that all wired up. Now with our panel all wired up, I can fully reassemble this whole battery compartment, get this all nice and cleaned up, pretty much tuck everything away. And the final step is gonna be to adjust these lights. But I'm gonna wait till nighttime because I wanna make sure that these are even when the lights are on and that the spacing is correct. So got the lights all set up. I'm gonna just test them against this kind of like darker wall. Fortunately, there's a bunch of light here, but this is gonna have to do. So that's with them off, and there's on. So it's hard to tell because there's other like ambient lighting, but these things light up extremely bright, and you can tell they don't kind of flood out to the sides too much, which is good. It kind of stays kind of directly behind the truck. I'm gonna kind of test down this alley here. So let's go ahead and turn these things on. And there we go. So it shines all the way back. I think what I might do is I might point these lights up a little bit more, because as it sits right now, they're kind of pointing down a little bit too much. I was able to straighten them out more, and you can tell that these things are shooting much farther. They're actually lighting up all these trees and the buildings across the way. So I think these are insane with their output and their range. So I'll probably keep these pointed how they are now, because that looks a lot better. But that is going to be it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this light install. I will see you all on the next one.